Yeah, hi everyone. Welcome to a talk show with Particle Network. My name is Ravi. I'm the co-founder CEO of Zeeve. Zeeve Rollup is our infrastructure as a service. And we are very excited to welcome Ethan, who handles developer relations at Particle Network today for the talk show. Hi, Ethan.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. Yeah, so my name is Ethan. I go by the alias Tabasco online, so that's usually like the name that I use on Twitter and stuff like that. And yeah, like I said, I do develop relations here at Particle, so I do all the technical content and of course, cool sessions like this. And looking forward to kind of diving into some of these topics today. I know that we announced our partnership with Zeeve. I guess it was maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago now. So I think it's a perfect timing, and we've been thinking a lot about kind of how we've positioned ourselves within the rollup space and how we're contributing to that ecosystem. So I think there's definitely a lot of cool things to talk about today.
No, absolutely. I think we too are very excited for our partnership with Particle Network. We see lots and lots of different products and tools and protocols that Particle Network provides. And we are hoping, and we know that there are quite a few customers of ours on the rollup side. They are looking at some of these products. So, formally, if you can tell us what Particle Network is and what kind of products you provide for, dApps and developers building on layer one or building on layer two.
For sure, yeah. So like maybe I'll kind of break it down into two parts here. The first is like the tagline that we officially use, which at first it might be a little bit confusing, but I'll contextualize it to kind of add some definition to the tagline. So what we refer to ourselves as officially is the intent-centric modular access layer of Web3. So what this means is that like we are like at the most base definition like an access layer, where all of the technology that we build like I think at this point 5 or 6 different like core solutions. The goal is to get people into Web3 and using applications as easily as possible. So in that sense, we are like an access layer for all users, whether you are a 10-year veteran in the space and you want to start using the application, or whether like you've just heard of Web3 today and you want to start using your first application. Our goal at Particle is to basically make that process of starting to use applications and go across different chains and express what you want to do on chain and have it be achieved, and just being able to use the blockchain and kind of participate in the ecosystem. We want that to be as simple as possible, because for a long time, and even still today, like one of the biggest barriers to entry for like this idea of mass adoption or like the next billion users has been purely the complexity of Web3. Well, you can imagine like 3 years ago, if I want to start using Web3, actually I remember when I first got into the space, I think it was Dogecoin that I first started using. And I actually started running my own like node on my computer for like the wallet client and stuff like that. And I had no idea what I was doing. And then of course, like you have, the evolution from that from years ago when you would run your own nodes or whatever into like, of course, normal wallets. So things that like use RPC nodes. So that's like MetaMask and whatever. And that's great. But like the problem with traditional wallets is that if I want to go and create a wallet, I have like this like major point of failure that I have to secure myself, which is a seed phrase. So if I want to go create a MetaMask wallet, I have this seed phrase, which is just a private key basically, that I have to go find a place to store it. I have to like be secure about it. I have to be careful about what I connect to. I mean, the security risks and the responsibilities that we're giving to users traditionally are a lot. Now, of course, this is just the nature of like self-custody and whatever, which is great. And that's definitely very important. But there's a way to like retain that without having to have that same level of risk and that same level of friction. So it's like there's two main points of issues that like you'll see in the onboarding self alone and the onboarding process, which is number one, the actual time it takes to get in to Web3. So downloading a Chrome extension or application on your phone, writing down the seed phrase, securing that yourself. That's one problem. The second problem is actually stemming from that seed phrase, where not only is it like hard to get in Web3 and it takes time, you have to understand it, but like you have to secure this yourself. So if I write it down somewhere and somebody walks into my room and grabs a piece of paper, then that's like all my money gone, and the custody of that wallet is out of my hands now. So this is where things start getting a little bit like, it's really hard to like see a future where there's a billion users that are like all, required to secure this like one phrase. And like there isn't like this massive wave of have loss of funds constantly. So the alternative to this like onboarding issue of like, number one, takes too much time. Number two, it's putting a lot of responsibility on the user to secure their own keys. This is where like MPC TSS wallets come in. This is what we do as like our foundational component of our tech stack. It's something that we call Smart Wallet Service. Basically, what this refers to is basically like we have SDKs and different product solutions that allow developers to like have users get into their applications through social login. So as a user, I can go into an application that's used Particle and sign in with my Google account or my email or my phone number or something of this nature. And then through that login process, that for me as a user feels identical to what I'm already used to with every other Web2 application. In the backend, what's actually happening is that a wallet's being created in a way where I don't have to manage my seed phrase because it's saving essentially one share on the user's device, another share within a trusted execution environment. And it can get a little bit complicated in terms of the technicalities, and it's quite interesting. But the TLDR is that basically like the user doesn't have to worry about this, and they still get this highly secure wallet that they can now use within this application and across other applications that support it. So like this is a much better alternative than the process that I just talked about, where it's like instead of having to secure it completely yourself and going through this like long laborious process, users can like get wallets in 2 clicks and start using the application and so on. And like also what we're trying to get into is like the problem is that, well, once a user is onboarded, what happens beyond that, right? So now it's like there's friction involved in the actual interaction process, and now you have like multi-chain friction sometimes. So we're also working on solving those, but at the foundation, it is like the MPC wallet side, which I know we're going to talk a little bit about today.
Got it. No, I agree 100%. If you want to have, a lot of users, especially Web2 users, new to Web3, start using applications, consuming different protocols and so on and so forth, it's very important to improve on the user experience. And I think abstracting various complexities of Web3 is something very much required. What you are doing on the wallet side, on the account abstraction side, and other areas. Similarly, we were also motivated when we started 4 years back that how to abstract the infrastructure itself. We started with setting up different networks on the permission side, like Fabric, Besu, and R3 Coda. And then we got into public protocol space with app chains like subnets and parachains, Cosmos SDK. Again, the idea was that it's very difficult for users to whether they focus on building their apps and getting more and more users and transactions on their chain, or should they focus on bringing validators, managing the node infrastructure, managing the updates and upgrades. It's a lot of challenges, and I think we also started with the same motivation to how to abstract the entire infrastructure. And I think we have seen the success of shared RPC APIs to dedicated nodes, one-click deployed, nodes on validator side. And we have seen, newer chains now when come into the market, it's very easy for the new validators to adopt a new chain because there are players like us who convert that offering into a one-click deployment. So don't need to go through the elaborate documentation. Each chain has got their own nuances in terms of setting up the infrastructure. So each time, because we have seen a lot of validators, they set up their validation on multiple chains. Now, each chain with their own infrastructure requirements, it's a nightmare. So I think this looks very interesting, and especially social login is something that we have seen. I remember we had a customer about 2 years back on NFT ticketing, and the biggest challenge they had was that how to abstract the entire experience for the normal Web2 users who are buying tickets, because they are not competing with Web3, they are competing with Web2 ticketing players, right? And if they don't give the same kind of experience which people are used to when buying tickets, it's not going to work. And again, you require, all these social logins and account abstraction to enable users to don't worry about the gas fee and having native tokens and so on and so forth. So I can totally relate that most of the apps today are going to be successful only when we have proper user experience to the users. And in terms of MPC wallet, again, I think this is very exciting how the social auth works, where you are having just part of the key, and rest of the keys is stored within the trusted execution environment of Particle Network. So you are holding the custody of your funds. You have, and at the same time, you do not need to worry about securing the seed phrase or private key or so on and so forth. I think looks very interesting. So coming to the one of your other very hot product, which is account abstraction. Account abstraction overall has been a hot topic the last couple of years. And now we have a proper account abstraction standard. And then there are quite a few players in the market. So what is account abstraction, and how, it helps startups, or what kind of use cases where, account abstraction helps, and how Particle Network has innovated on the account abstraction side?
For sure. Yeah, I mean, first of all, everything that you just mentioned, like there's a lot of problems that builders face, like building things that people actually want to use and building things that like get adoption, right? So, I mean, everything has points of friction right now, like the actual blockchain infrastructure side. So building environments that are like fast, cheap, and like secure. I mean, this has been like the ongoing, like, how do you solve this in Web3? I think, of course, Zeeve is doing a great job of making that accessible. And then like you have even lower in the stack, which is like the user experience side. Like, how do you get people into Web3? Then how do you get people to use Web3 in a way that feels frictionless? So actually, those two problems I just mentioned, the onboarding and the interaction piece, is what account abstraction aims to kind of not completely solve, but enable a lot of flexibility within. Because previously, for some context, like within Web3, basically when you onboarded into an account, and even today when you do so within MetaMask, you're onboarding into something called an externally owned account, and an EOA is the term for it. Basically, this is like a traditional account that's secured by one private key, and that's what you use. And the issue is that they're very rigid, so like they can basically interact with contracts, they can send transactions, they can hold funds. That's pretty much it. They aren't programmable. They do what they want to do, and that's what they're limited to. Which is great, which is like that's what we've been using for a long time. We figured out ways to make them very useful, and of course be the primary means of interaction. And that's of course like the NPC wallets that we generate are based on EOAs because they have to be. But the issue is that like these EOAs, to be used solely as points of interfaces with like Web3, are quite flawed because of that rigidity. So, for example, if I want to secure my wallet beyond like an NPC wallet or beyond like a seed phrase, let's say I don't know, I want to add like a social recovery mechanism, or I want to maybe I have like a trusted other wallet, or a trusted individual that I want to be a guardian of my wallet, or maybe I want like two-factor authentication, or I don't know, something that's like can only be a result of programmability. EOAs just can't do this. I mean, maybe you can get like clever with like private key management or whatever, but like in terms of like a truly decentralized format, EOAs are it's totally out of the question. So this is where smart accounts come in. Now, smart accounts basically in like the account abstraction standard, the idea is that what we want to do is transition from EOAs, these standard account structures, to smart accounts, which very simply are just smart contracts. And these smart contracts, what we can do is basically use them as interfaces with the blockchain that users can use rather than their EOAs. So they generate an EOA with something like MPC TSS or something like a MetaMask. And then instead of actually using the EOA to interact, the EOA is purely uses like a middle point to then sign for and own a smart account. So the smart account is actually the point of interface that users have with the blockchain. The big thing with smart accounts is because they're smart contracts, they're programmable. So you can do anything you want. You can really imagine with like this account. So you can do like additional security features with guardians. You can do things like gas transactions, so sponsor transactions for users where they don't have to pay any gas fees. You can do things like batch transactions. So I can do 10 transactions into one like batch basically, where it's actually like it's called 10 user operations that are in one main transaction. And you can even do things like session keys, which is a pretty popular use case where like I can maybe play a game or something with my smart account and I never have to sign a transaction. Like all the signatures and the pop-ups are abstracted away. So like now all of a sudden I can play games, I can interact with these social platforms where like maybe there's transactions happening, but I don't know as a user because it's being abstracted away. So this is kind of like where the use cases for kind of abstraction start to be realized, where it's like all of a sudden you like for the past years and years, I mean, we've been using this very rigid, inflexible account structure, and all of a sudden, like users now have access to this infinitely flexible type of account they can use for anything. And now this isn't only like interesting for users, but for dApp developers. I mean, now you can create accounts, you can create experiences that are extremely specific and targeted towards your application. So you can basically have users start leveraging accounts that are specific to your use case. So you can imagine, like, I don't know, maybe you're playing a game and you want a smart account that is like made specifically for your game, that like it has session key functionality and these different things that are built around your use case. So then the user logs in, they get this account created for them, they deposit ETH or something of that nature, and they can start playing your game. And maybe it's designed in a way where like the user has zero knowledge that they're actually using Web3. They just like have an initial deposit point or maybe on ramp or whatever. And all of a sudden, like they're playing your game, there's no signatures, there's no gas. You can even go further and of course add like the additional on-chain security features or whatever. And now you have an experience that is like very similar to Web2. So then you tie this into social logins, and all of a sudden now you have applications where users are logging in with their social account and then interfacing with a smart account. And that's when you start like abstracting away all these complexities, right? And that's when you get like you have the convenience of social logins and the security of MPC. You have the insane flexibility of account abstraction, and now developers have a ton of flexibility and kind of like wiggle room to work with in terms of creating applications that are truly next generation, that take advantage of like all the other infrastructure in the space. So it's like, it's great if we can get like super fast blockchains that are modular and have incredibly low fees and are highly secure. That's awesome. But if nobody wants to start using them and build applications on them because of those kind of inherent user-facing limitations, then that's a problem. So this is like where account abstraction, social logins carry that lift. And now, of course, you can't have one without the other. So like you have social logins and account abstraction, which are becoming very popular, and they're solving a lot of problems. But then you also need the other side of it, which is the blockchain infrastructure. So like what's really happening in Web3 right now, and I think a big part of it was kicked off by this like sort of UX renaissance that we're in right now between account abstraction and social logins and whatnot, where it's like infrastructure on all levels is getting to a very exciting point. So like blockchain infrastructure is better than it ever has been. UX infrastructure better than it ever has been. Like there's a lot of really cool innovations that are coming out now that are pushing us closer to this idea of like, it's cheap, it's easy, and it's accessible to create applications that, like you mentioned earlier, feel the same as Web2 applications, and users don't know the difference, but they're reaping the benefits of blockchain and being able to have their on-chain identity and have self-custody and all these different things without really feeling it, right? Which has always been a big problem within Web3. So this is like at the core of account abstraction, and of course, kind of what it aims to enable. And the main standard for AA that recently got passed was ERC 457, which basically enables this entire flow that I just mentioned with like smart contract wallets and whatnot without any consensus level changes to Ethereum. And it's been pretty successful so far. I think in total, like the official number is like 10 million total user operations or transactions through account abstraction. It's definitely more than that. Probably I would estimate closer to 25, 30 million. At Particle, we've actually individually contributed about 6 million user operations just to ourselves alone. So we've been very involved in that scene and trying to kind of push it. I think just over the past like 30 days, we've had over 300,000 smart accounts created. So we've been very happy with kind of the results and the adoption levels, but of course there's a long way to go and it's relatively new infrastructure, but account abstraction is definitely going to play a major role in kind of the future of Web3.
No, I think this looks very interesting. And I think the numbers that you have mentioned, the benefits that you have mentioned are definitely very encouraging. And there's another area that we are seeing a lot of traction on account abstraction is the enterprise space. And one of the use case which is picking up now is the real world asset tokenization. And the challenges that we have seen in tokenized asset is that, again, there are a lot of Web2 users, and there the value of token is pretty high, right? So if a large asset has been broken down into smaller pieces, and if and a limited number of smaller pieces, then the value of one single token itself is a very high number. And there, you have challenges like account recovery. That becomes one challenge, which again account abstraction solves. And then there's another challenge is of inheritance of assets, because end of the day, if you're holding tokenized assets, then you need to be sure about how the asset is going to be managed, the entire life cycle of the asset. And that involves inheritance also. Like with EOA, we have seen that you have lost the key, you have lost the account, and that has been faced by many users across so many years. But I think with account abstraction, having more control over your wallet account, where you can code these kind of pieces, multiple people having custody of it, and so on and so forth, with recovery options. I think that's another area that we are seeing a lot of people are using it. Another interesting use case, which is may not be a desired use case, but there are a lot of enterprises who do not want to deal with tokens per se, right? So they want to have their smart contracts, they want it to be deployed on public chains, but they don't want to deal into speculative tokens or different kind of utility or security tokens. And there again, account abstraction, solves the challenges with them because they don't need to actually deal with the tokens and still be part of the public or the Web3 ecosystem. So that I think, some of the exciting use cases we have seen with quite a few customers that that work with us on the enterprise side. There, and I, as you mentioned, in the Web3, the scope is humongous. The value proposition is very clear. and now it is coming up in it's solving many challenges in the enterprise space also. So yeah, this looks very, very interesting. And I see Particle Network is already one of the largest player in the account abstraction space, and let's hope it grows even further this year. Um, so from the rollup side, like, we see that Particle Network is now focusing on the rollup ecosystem, as we have seen in last 1 year, after, optimistic rollups came in with Optimism opening up the OP stack. And then, it was followed by Polygon coming up with Polygon CDK for ZK rollup, and then ZK Sync launching ZK stack for hyperchains, and then Arbitrum Orbit. So this whole rollup ecosystem is exploding now, and lots of rollups are coming in. A lot of people are launching, and I think the value proposition again is very clear. There's a challenge of having your own dedicated block space. There's a challenge of managing the gas fee, and for quite a few use cases, where the number of transactions have increased on the layer one. If you're running a gaming app or a payment app, and or a DeFi app, and you want a solution where you are not worried about the congestion on the mainnet or the main network, and you don't need to worry about, you have a tighter control over the gas fee, tighter control over your performance, and so on and so forth. And in some cases, privacy, data compliances, you may want to have a permission chain. So rollups, I think, are solving quite a few challenges in terms of high throughput, lower gas fee, privacy, and other customization or configuration options. And I see Particle Network is having a larger focus on serving the rollup ecosystem. So what do you think about the whole rollup ecosystem evolving in 2024?
We're really excited about kind of the evolution of rollup as a service and rollups as a result, especially like when it comes to tying it into like the modular ecosystem in some sense, and like how developers are now being enabled to like create almost application specific rollups and things that are made, like you mentioned, very specific to their exact use case. Like it's hard to for a lot of developers, especially enterprises or institutions that have very specific needs. Like it's a lot of the time it's hard to pitch like public chains. I mean, it's just like not for everyone in terms of building. So like rollups have a lot of major utility within the ecosystem that we're very excited about. Um, Although like our big thing with rollups that we've identified is that like now we're getting to the point in the ecosystem where like it's so easy and so powerful to like launch a rollup quite quickly. Is that like we're quickly getting into the issue of fragmentation. Actually, I did I think it was a panel in Singapore that I moderated with those Layer Zero, Manta Network, Gas Zero, and a few other guys that are kind of like in the rollup, modular ecosystem. And uh, like what we discussed, like fragmentation is one of like the big issues in that ecosystem right now. And like liquidity fragmentation is one thing, but also just like user experience fragmentation. So like as a user, like right now with MetaMask, if I want to move between different rollups, like I don't know, let's say there's like you're looking at application specific rollups, right? And I want to move from one application to the other, and I kind of want to like switch between different chains, and like this is a nightmare for end users. I mean, you're like managing multiple different balances and like constantly switching networks on the mask. And I mean, it's just like, especially once you start tying in account abstraction, it gets even worse. Like account abstraction is great, but in terms of like multi-chain usage, it kind of breaks down because smart accounts need to be redeployed and they need to be updated. And like, there's a lot of problems that start coming up on the user experience side. So like we believe that like the future of Web3 is largely in like the creation of multiple different rollups, especially like those that are application specific or vertical specific. And we want to play a part in solving the problems that I just mentioned, kind of streamlining the user experience, especially when it comes to like the bigger picture of rollups. So like how a user goes from interacting on Ethereum to then going between like 5 different rollups and playing a game on one, then maybe I don't know, using DeFi application on another. How do we like facilitate this in a way that feels seamless to the end user? And again, like create this idea of a cohesive ecosystem where like, the benefits of launching a rollup aren't lost from like the UX hardships that come from integrating with the rest of the ecosystem. So like actually what we've been thinking about is this idea of chain abstraction, right? So it's like, you know, rollups are like this incredibly powerful technology, and they're easy to spin up. But if we have, hundreds or thousands of rollups, how do we abstract the lines between these different ecosystems and these different blockchains? Well, we kind of see account abstraction as being a key player in that. Like I mentioned, like today, account abstraction across multiple chains is pretty difficult to manage sometimes. But what we're actually working on is something called omni-chain account abstraction, where the goal of this is to, in a lot of sense, basically abstract away the experience of chains when it comes to using account abstraction. So what we're going to be doing is basically having this mechanism. I won't get too deep in the weeds of like the technical aspects of it, but have this mechanism where like I can deploy a smart account in like one central location, and then everywhere else that I want to use that smart account, it can automatically be deployed for me. And then if I want to update the smart account, so let's say I want to switch the guardian in my account, or I want to add like a module to the account, or something that changes the actual like storage of the smart account itself. Previously, if I want to do that, I need to go to every blockchain that I've deployed it on and update it. So it's like if I'm doing this across like 20, 30 different ecosystems or blockchains, this is a big problem. This can be pretty, just like for end users, I mean, this can be almost impossible. So with what we're building, we're basically trying to unify this entire experience and make like the general like UX of using a smart account across multiple different chains, multiple different rollups as simple as possible. And doing so in a way that like feels frictionless, it feels seamless, right? And further than this, like we're also working on like intents, for example. So intents are a major thing of like, if I have like 10 ETH on one chain and I want to, I don't know, go play a game on this chain, buy these NFTs. I want to go to another place and do this thing, and then go to chain C and then chain D and chain E, right? And do these different things that are specific to those different ecosystems. Then, like, how do we do that? Well, today, of course, that process would take hours, right? Going through all that, going through bridges and whatnot. So, in tandem with omnichain account abstraction, what we're going to be doing is releasing probably near the end of this year, releasing like this full framework for intent-centric design, which is basically the transition from transaction-centric design, which is like to achieve a goal, like like I mentioned, let's say I have 10 ETH and I want to go transfer some of that over to some sort of roll up and start playing a game, right? If I want to do that today, that's like, let's say 4 or 5 steps as a user, 4 or 5 transactions or things that I need to do to get to that point. With intents, the idea would be that a user just simply expresses that they want to do that. So as a user, I just say, I want to click play on this game, right? I'm on this roll up. I want to click play. Like I have some ETH somewhere, or I have some Matic somewhere. It's like, I'm not thinking about that as a user. I just want to play the game, right? So then intent-centric design says, well, okay, the user has like these conditions met. They want to play this game. It costs 0.25 ETH and they have this amount of balance. Like what do we need to do to get them to the point where they can achieve their goal, right? They have like the input, they have 0.25 ETH that they want to input. They have the output, which is they want like maybe this NFT or this like entry pass to play this game. How do they get there? And then the intent fusion protocol, which is what we're building, what it says is like, well, to get there, they need to do these like 5 transactions, right? And then it says to the user, do you want to do this? And the user says yes, and then it just gets executed for them. So then rather than the user need to like go through and understand the blockchain ecosystem and like navigate all this themselves, they just simply need to start using applications, right? And everything else in terms of like the actual management between chains and between balances, it's handled for them. So they don't need to think about this, which is very important. And that's like, that empowers the ecosystem to flourish a lot, especially on like the application level side. Because now as a user, if I can go to any application on any rope that I want, start using it without having to think about any of the infrastructural complexities that are attached to multi-chain, then like now the case for rollups is I mean, it's already incredibly strong, but it's much stronger, especially for end users, because now there's no downside, right? There's no UX downside at all. So like, why wouldn't you launch one? So this is like basically what we're trying to solve and what we're trying to achieve with a lot of these things that we're working on. It's not live just yet. It's mostly been like we've released a lot of blog posts and kind of architectural overviews of what we're trying to build. But we're primarily expecting like, over the next 2 or 3 quarters for a lot of this technology to kind of emerge. And we're of course actively working on it alongside all of our other stuff. So that's kind of what we're working on in the rollup space. And we're very excited about the future and the current state of it. We've been super impressed with everything that's been happening, especially of course with our partner like Zeeve, kind of the growth that's been happening in that ecosystem. We hope to as this year continues, and of course it continues to grow, and we hope to kind of contribute to that from our angle with kind of the UX improvements.
No, I think this sounds amazing. The whole concept of omni-chain account abstraction. What comes to my mind is what InstaDApp did with DeFi transactions. If you want to do DeFi transactions across different chains, it becomes nightmare. Do one transaction on one chain and then move to another chain and so on and so forth. With InstaDApp, you could actually write down the entire set of transactions and it can happen in one go. And you are even going one step further, abstracting the entire piece, like the example you gave about a gamer who just want to play a game and do not need to worry about how the backend transactions are going to happen cross-chain. So now, of course, I think this looks very interesting. In fact, we would love to, learn more about your Omni-chain whenever you are ready, and see, how we can bring in the value to our different rollups. Because the way I see it, by the end of this year, let's say we have hundreds of rollups powered by Zeeve, and how we can bring more, you can say, cross compatibility. So we are working with interop layers. Polygon has launched aggregation layer, which again is going to help a lot, especially with rollups which are built using CDK. But apart from that, a lot of common areas where different rollups can interact with each other, and maybe helpful for the rollup per se, but definitely helpful to the users of their applications. So of course, I think in both ways, the omni-chain account abstraction will be very, very exciting in the coming time. Yeah, so thanks, Ethan. I think it has been exciting talking to you. Got to learn a lot of new things which Particle Network is coming with. And we are very excited that we have partnered with Particle Network to bring your solid and amazing products to our ecosystem of rollup partners. And it's great to interact with you. Let's definitely meet up and find some time and meet up at ETH Denver. We would love to chat more on this and see, how we can continue to work together and create some exciting stuff, innovative stuff in the Web3 ecosystem.
Definitely, yeah. We'd love to meet up at ETH Denver. We're all going to be out there, and we are very excited about everything that Zeeve is building, and of course, how we can contribute to that space. It's really exciting. I mean, I think like at the end of the day, like there's many like things that are being solved in Web3. That's what kind of what makes it exciting, because there's just like so many opportunities for builders, and things are getting like so good in terms of the infrastructure now, where it's like I think as we get into like the next 6 months and next year, like the types of things that are going to be like built off of like rollups and like these like MPC TSS and social logins, account abstraction, and then everything else that we're building, as well as many other providers that are building. Like for builders, like this is a very exciting. I think I used the word renaissance earlier, and I think we really are getting to the point where like consumer facing applications are becoming not only viable, but like very powerful in terms of like the actual UX experience that they give to end users. So we're pumped for it. We're super excited to, of course, be working with Zeeve. And thank you again for having me on. Amazing questions.
Thank you. Have a good day and great meeting with you. Thanks, Ethan.